Hello, David here with Northwest Outdoor Adventures, and today we're going to be going over all the gear that got me through my first 100 miler. So before I dive into the gear and everything like that, just to give you an idea of what exactly my 100 miler was like, we had pretty cold weather, so we were looking at 30s to 50s Fahrenheit, somewhere around there, throughout the day and night, and obviously colder at night. And also a lot of rain. So we had a lot of rain early, and then it was just kind of sprinkled throughout the day, and then, more rain throughout the evening. And so, I'm going to cover some cold weather stuff in here that I thought was pretty critical to my success. And then I'd also just like to add, people can run 100 milers just wearing sandals and, a handheld. So just because, this stuff worked for me doesn't mean it'll work for you. And just because I think, using a vest or poles or something like that is great, it doesn't mean that's the only way to do it. So obviously there's many ways to skin a cat, I suppose. And I'm not trying to say this is all the tried and true way. This is just what worked for me. So if you have any questions about that or anything, please let me know in the comments below. And other than that, let's just jump right into it. All right, so jumping right in, I'm going to cover probably the most asked questions, which are, what did you use on your feet? What kind of vest did you use, nutrition and stuff like that. And so we'll just kind of start from, what most people see as the most important, and that is your feet. So everyone knows that you got to take care of two major things when you're out there on a 100 miler, and that is nutrition, so your gut, take care of your stomach, and take care of your feet. So what I wore, starting with the socks, I wore the Injinji. These are like some knee-high socks, and Injinji has worked super well for me. I used to have a lot of issues back when I first started trail running when I'd do anything longer than like 15 miles where my toes would tend to rub and I'd get some blisters, and this really helps. As you can see, these have kind of the toe separation there. It's a little weird to get used to, but once you do get used to it, these things are magic. So these are a huge, huge plus in my book. Of course, the race that I was running, like I said, was wet. Had a lot of adverse conditions, and these, I used them the entire time. Never swapped out my socks, never swapped out my shoes. 100 miles, and these held up the entire time. No holes or anything like that. They drained really well. Dried really quickly, and can't recommend them enough. They were awesome. So, on top of the socks, I was wearing the Altra Timps. So, if you've watched my past videos, you know that I have kind of a love-hate relationship with Altra. The durability issues, of course, have been a big concern of mine and a lot of people's for months now, if not years. And I actually had a brand new pair that Altra gave me because I complained about a prior pair I had that tore in less than 100 miles. So they actually sent me out a new pair, and these had about 6 miles on them, I think, when I took them out on the 100 miler. So they were relatively fresh, and they held up great. They drain so fast, and they dry really quickly. And again, I wore these the entire time. I do size up a little bit. Typically, I wear like a 10.5 in most shoes. These run a little bit bigger anyways. And so, or I guess they run a little bit smaller. However you say that. Basically, so I'd wear a 10.5 about, and I sized up a half size to an 11 for these. So I think that helps too when you're doing these longer distance races because your feet are bound to swell. And it gives you enough room for that to happen, and so your toes aren't constantly hitting the front of the shoe and things like that. So again, I love these shoes. I have a lot of complaints about them too, but the fact of the matter is I didn't have to change them a single time. They were awesome, and they got me through the 100 miler. So I do recommend them in some ways if you have the cash to blow and you don't care if they rip after 150 miles. So yeah. All right, so on top of my shoes, I actually use the Altra Gaiters. If you don't know what gaiters are, these pretty much just go around the top of the shoes and prevents any particles or, like any debris from getting inside your shoes, which you definitely do not want to deal with when you're running an ultra of any kind, let alone 100 milers or 100 miles. So I find these to be super important, super helpful. They're like $20, and, depending on what kind of shoes you have, most have some type of system to allow for these. So definitely check them out if you haven't used them in the past. All right, so the next biggest question I normally get asked by people is the vest. And this is a little bit of a hot topic within the ultra running community, I suppose. I actually use an older generation Salomon vest. And a lot of people really love this vest, so it should come as no surprise. Um, but overall, I really, really like this vest. It fits perfectly. It feels like I'm not wearing anything really. I did have some issues with chafing, but I think that was more related to the way I was utilizing my hydration system. I'll talk about that in a second, but overall, I've never had any issues with this vest. It is getting a little old. It's got some tears in it now, but I mean, I've had this thing for 3 years now, I think. I use it for almost every major race. And if you can still get one, I'll link to as much as I can, like I said, in the comments. But these, I think, go for a lot of money now new. So it's a little hard to find, but this is like the Salomon Advanced Skin 5 liter, something like that. Maybe it's the Advanced Skin 2. Either way, link in the comments or link in the description. But yeah, love this vest. Super awesome. Can't recommend it enough. All right, so as I mentioned, this 100-miler saw a lot of adverse conditions, a lot of rain. It was very wet, got very cold that night. Temperatures, like I said, were hovering, 30s to 40s, maybe low 50s throughout the day and the night. So good rain gear is critical when you're out there, 26 plus hours like myself. You need good gear to keep you warm, keep you in the game. And so I have two jackets that I really, really love and I would really recommend. I have, and again, this one might be a little bit hard to find, but this is the Outdoor Research. The Outdoor Research Helium Hybrid jacket with the hood. And what I really, really like about this, and you can kind of tell when you're looking at the inside here, is there's actually a separation between where it's waterproof and where it ventilates. So this black patch kind of in the center here, which runs down your armpit and down your side, that's just totally ventilated. It's just some synthetic materials that aren't waterproof, so it allows it to breathe. Whereas the rest of the outer shell is pretty well waterproofed. And I mean, I've put this through the wash a bunch of times, and it still is pretty good about staying waterproof. I haven't added or treated it at all since then. And this jacket's just been amazing. I love this jacket. Anytime I know it's going to consistently rain a lot, and I'm still going to be giving a high effort, so I need that breathability, this is my go-to jacket. I love it, and it got me through the 100-miler. Now, I said I like two different jackets, and I also have this North Face Gore-Tex jacket. I think it came out this year. This is very much... It's got that weird Gore-Tex feeling material on it that feels kind of like a trash bag. And I would say this one definitely doesn't breathe nearly as well as the Outdoor Research one. However, through the night, which is when I wore this, I pretty much just wore it as an outer shell with some other layers when I knew I wasn't going to be moving as much. So I knew I'd be kind of cold. And so the breathability wasn't as big of an issue because I knew I wasn't going to be just sweating a bunch. And so that jacket... Not only did it keep me dry, but it kept me really warm too. So it held in the heat very well. And yeah, when I know that I wear this a lot when I hike as well, when it's raining around here, like it does often in the Pacific Northwest. So if I know it's going to be cold and wet, I usually will bring this jacket. And so yeah, both of those jackets, huge help in getting me through, the rainy part of the day and the very cold night. All right, so let's jump into nutrition a bit, as that's another huge topic and often gets brought up when you're doing these races. I mean, you just can't win. Well, I mean, you just can't run 100 miles without fueling yourself properly. So, you can get it by, at least personally, I don't think so. You can get by in, maybe up to a 50-miler with pretty poor nutrition and things like that. But I feel like once you get to that 100-mile mark, you have to plan and actually execute your nutrition pretty well in order to have, the race that you want to have. So going over the big thing, first and foremost, probably tailwind. That got me through a huge portion of the race. That was my strategy for the first 50 miles, was to rely mostly on tailwind. I wanted to get through the day and starting out the night mostly with tailwind. And so what I was doing is I was putting 2 scoops of tailwind inside of one of my Salomon soft flasks, which I typically don't really like these because they taste like plastic to me. However, if I add in something like tailwind or something like that, it dulls the taste a bit, so I can live with that. So I was doing 2 scoops, which is about 200 calories, I believe, inside of each of these, and I was carrying 3 of them with me. So I would do that I was pretty much consuming one of these an hour, close to it. So, that kept me on my goal of like around 200 calories-ish an hour. So I think by the 50-mile mark, I had quite a bit of this. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it worked out really well. And, of course, for nutrition, especially, you should really test out all this stuff prior to the day of the race. You don't want to go into a race and this is the first time you've tried Tailwind. So I had trained with this. I knew it worked for me. It settles well with my stomach usually. So that was the plan and it worked out super well for me. Now, I did supplement it with Spring Energy or Spring Nutrition. I do really like these. I hate gels, so goos or anything like that, I can't stomach at all. But these Spring Energy gels, I guess, are really, really good. However, I would also say only this one flavor is good. So this is the Power Rush, which is essentially a plum type flavor. And it's really good. I do like it a lot. It's much just like a fruit puree, kind of like a baby food, which is really easy on my stomach. So I like these a bit later in the race when I'm not really feeling super good. And, like a candy bar or something would be very difficult to eat, when you just have something in your mouth and you're just like trying to chew and get it down. These go down really easy and they have a good taste, so I like them a lot. I did supplement some other things in there. I largely did stick to the aid station food later in the race when it got cold, so I was eating hot food a lot, but I also had some of these little fruit to-goes. They may be a Canadian thing, I'm not quite sure. I found them when I was doing the Squamish 50-50. And I liked them a lot. So I bought a bunch of them and I ate a couple throughout the race. They got some good flavors. I don't know. They're pretty good. I liked them. And then, of course, this was a cupless race. So I brought along a little Solomon collapsible cup. So, if you are going through a race that's cupless, make sure you have something like that. All right. So moving on to electronics, as that is always a huge topic of discussion as well. The watch. The big thing is the watch. So, like I said, I was out there for 26 hours. I have all of my Strava data and everything, or all my Garmin data is the complete race. I didn't have to stop my watch at all. Didn't have to do anything except charge it a little bit. And so I have the Garmin 935, which is great. If I should do a full review on this because I really, really love this watch. I think it has all the greatness of the Garmin Fenix line as well as the Suunto stuff. So I think this is the best watch on the market right now for the price point, or at least it was in the past year. So if you're looking for a watch, definitely check this out. And yeah, maybe look for a full review on it. But like I said, I only had to charge it a little bit. And how I did that was with this Anker charging block. So this is very lightweight. It's almost the exact same size as a phone. And so it sits, what I was doing was I just had it in my vest pocket and I just sat my phone on top of it and put this in with it. And then, if I needed to charge my phone or my watch or my headlamp or anything like that, it was easy access. And this is like $20, like I said. I'll put a link in the comments. But overall, it's really great just knowing, your watch isn't going to die because you can charge it very easily. And this is super lightweight. I barely even noticed I had it. Now, headlamps, if you watch the podcast where I talk about the headlamps I used... Whoops. I messed up with my headlamps for sure. So I used this Nitecore, I think it's like the N20 or something like that, or maybe the N30. And I had used this in the past a little bit, but it really came back to bite me in this race because I was expecting this to last, at least like 5 or so hours, and it maybe lasted 2.5. And then the last like half hour was just super dull, barely any lumens being outputted. So I messed up. I actually used 2 different ones. I have 2 different ones of the same model. And yeah, that sucked because I made the same mistake twice. Right when it got dark, I was using one that eventually doled out and lost its life. And then I followed it up with this one, which did the same thing. So that was a big mistake. I don't recommend using this for overnight. This is probably just a good backup headlamp, which is what I originally bought it for. So it is super lightweight. And it's nice because you can just mount it to like your hat or something like that if you have your hat turned around, which is what I've done in the past. But overall, do not use this as a primary light source. Now, what I would recommend, which I have and I do like, is this Petzl Reactic Plus, which I have a spare battery for. This is a very bright headlamp. You can program some stuff on your phone. The app sucks, so I don't know if it's really worth it overall, because this is like $100 headlamp. But it does last a long time. The quality of the light is great. Maybe I'll do a comparison video sometime. But overall, definitely don't skimp out on headlamps. I mean, they are very, very important to get through the night. And yeah, go with the better headlamp if you can. So just some loose ends that I wanted to cover here too. I was allowed to use trekking poles, and if you had seen some of my other videos, you know I had some injuries in the past couple months, and so I knew right away I'd be using trekking poles almost the entire race, which I did actually. I did use them the entire race, but I had a pretty good idea I'd be doing that anyways. So the trekking poles that I use are the Black Diamond Carbon Z series, I believe. Distance Carbon Z, I suppose, is the actual name. And I cut off the little hand grips that wrap around your hands up at the top. And these are awesome. I mean, these are the best poles I've ever had by far. They're kind of pricey, but they're so lightweight, and they fold up. I can fold one up right now. They collapse into themselves and then fold up very easily. So this is pretty easy to do while you're actually running too. So yep, they fold up like this, and then you can just slip them into the back of your vest. And it's like you don't even have them. So these are awesome. I love them a lot. And they've got me through some tough times, I'll tell you that. So probably couldn't have done that race without these, given how I was feeling a lot of the time. So I'm really happy I had them. All right, well, that pretty much wraps up, all the different gear that I thought was super critical to me finishing my 100-miler. There are some other loose ends here that I would mention real quickly. So kind of from a medical standpoint, hand warmers. I really love hand warmers. They're nice throughout the night when you need them. Of course, anti-chafe can be a huge issue for some people. It is for me. Squirrel's nut butter, that's kind of my primary go-to. And then I also just carry a small medical pack for, blisters and things like that along with me as well. And one thing I did this time was, if you can see, I bought a bunch of these plastic bins, actually 8 of them, I think, off Amazon. And what I did was I organized all of my stuff inside of these bins. So I had like a medical bin, a warm clothes bin, a shorts bin, a hat bin, things like that. And that made it a lot easier for my crew. When I came in, for them to grab things quickly, I could just say, grab my hat that's in the hat bin, and they know right where to get it. So it's a little overkill probably, but from an organizational standpoint, I think it helped everyone out a lot and made some of the transitions at aid stations a bit smoother and easier. And it kind of took it off my mind. I didn't have to worry about trying to explain, I need this thing that's underneath this thing inside of, whatever. So I think clearly labeling stuff in bins made it a lot easier for me anyways. And that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions, or if you care about any other of the gear that I used, please let me know. I'm happy to answer anything like that. And that's pretty much it. I wish you all luck on your 100-milers that I'm sure you're going to run. And yeah, hope the weather is better for you than it was for me on mine. All right. Well, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.